Quiznos had something most fast food chains spend years trying to create, a product people could remember. It was not just another sandwich shop. The bread was hot, the cheese melted, the sauces felt richer. The whole experience seemed slightly more premium than the cold sub customers already understood. In a category that could easily feel ordinary, Quiznos found a way to make the same basic food feel upgraded. And for a while, that was enough to build a real empire. By the mid-2000s, Quiznos looked like one of the only sandwich chains that could seriously challenge Subway. Stores were spreading fast. The brand had a clear identity. Customers knew what made it different. It had the kind of simple product idea every restaurant company wants. Easy to explain, easy to franchise, and easy to remember. But the strange thing about Quiznos is that many people did not stop liking the sandwiches before the business started collapsing. The product survived in memory longer than the restaurants survived on the streets. That is what makes the story more interesting than a normal fast food decline. Quiznos was not destroyed by one bad commercial, one competitor, or one dramatic mistake. It was weakened by a system that could grow faster than it could stay healthy. Quiznos began in Denver in 1981, built around toasted submarine sandwiches at a time when the category was already familiar. Customers did not need to learn what a sub was. Subway had already helped teach that market. Quiznos only had to make the experience feel better. That was the original insight. A sandwich is a simple product, but temperature changes perception. A toasted sub feels more prepared, more substantial. More like a meal than something assembled quickly behind a counter. The warmth made the product feel premium without requiring customers to enter a completely new category. This was a smart position. Quiznos was not trying to invent a strange food people had never seen before. It was taking something mainstream and improving the sensory experience. That is one of the strongest forms of business differentiation. The customer understands the category instantly, but the brand still has a reason to exist. Subway was familiar, cheap, and everywhere. Quiznos felt like the better version, warmer, richer, more indulgent. It could charge more because the customer could feel the difference immediately. That advantage gave the company a powerful story to sell, not only to customers, but to franchisees. In franchising, the parent company owns the brand and the system. The franchisee pays for the right to operate a local restaurant under that brand. The parent company gets fees, royalties, and scale. The franchisee provides much of the capital, labor, and local risk. When it works, the model is powerful. A brand can expand without building every store itself. Local owners can plug into an existing concept instead of starting from zero. Customers see more locations, awareness grows, and the chain starts to look bigger than it really is as a corporate operation. Quiznos used that machine aggressively. After the company changed hands in the early 1990s, expansion accelerated. By 2007, Quiznos had grown to around 5,000 locations. From the outside, this looked like proof that the model worked. The brand had gone from a differentiated sandwich idea to a national footprint. But store count can be deceptive. A restaurant empire is not healthy just because it has many signs on many buildings. Each individual restaurant still has to make money after rent, labor, food, supplies, royalties, advertising fees, and debt. That single-store math is called unit economics. And in franchising, unit economics are not a side detail. They are the foundation. If the local operators cannot make enough money, the empire is not really expanding. It is spreading pressure. That was the hidden weakness inside Quiznos. The parent company could grow by selling franchises and building the network. But many franchisees later argued that the cost structure made it difficult to survive. Their complaints focused on issues like required supplies, food costs, advertising funds, and the economics of running the restaurants under the system. Quiznos disputed major claims in litigation, and not every allegation should be treated as proven fact. But the disputes themselves became part of the brand's reality. They revealed a deeper tension in the model. The company was not just selling sandwiches to customers. It was selling a business opportunity to operators. And if the opportunity did not work for enough of those operators, the brand's growth engine would eventually turn against itself. That is the danger of misaligned franchising. The parent company may benefit from expansion before the stores have proven they are durable. More restaurants can mean more fees, more brand presence, and more headline momentum. But if those restaurants are fragile, the system is not building strength. It is building future closures. For a while, the problem could hide beneath growth. When a brand is expanding quickly, new locations create the feeling of success. Customers see more stores. Franchise interest rises. The company looks like it has momentum, but fast growth can also make weak sites, weak operators, and weak economics harder to see. The problem becomes visible when pressure arrives, and pressure arrived from multiple directions. Subway remained much larger and more convenient. It had enormous scale, deep familiarity, and the ability to compete aggressively on value. Other sandwich chains also pushed into the market, giving customers more choices. Then the 2008 financial crisis made consumers more sensitive to price. That mattered because Quiznos had positioned itself as the premium sandwich option. A more expensive product can work when customers feel comfortable paying for the upgrade. But when the market shifts toward value, the premium player needs room to respond. Quiznos had less room than it needed. If franchisees already felt squeezed by costs, discounting became dangerous. Lower prices could bring in customers, but they could also destroy margins at the store level. The company was caught between the brand it had built and the economics its operators had to live with. This is where competition becomes misunderstood. Subway did not simply kill Quiznos. Competition exposed the fragility that was already inside the system. A strong operator network can survive price pressure, adjust menus, redesign stores, and absorb shocks. A weak operator network starts closing, and closures create their own downward spiral. When a restaurant chain loses locations, it does not just lose sales, it loses convenience, it loses visibility, it loses the habit of being in a customer's daily life. Fewer stores mean fewer reminders that the brand exists. Fewer reminders mean weaker traffic. Weaker traffic makes the remaining stores harder to operate. And as the network shrinks, it becomes harder to recruit new franchisees. The brand that once looked everywhere starts to feel absent. Quiznos' decline became dramatic. After peaking around 2007, the chain lost thousands of stores. By the time it filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2014, the company was trying to restructure a business that had already been weakened by years of debt, closures, competition, and franchisee tension. Chapter 11 did not mean Quiznos immediately disappeared. It is a legal process that allows a company to keep operating while reorganizing its debts. But symbolically, it marked the point where the empire's problems could no longer be hidden behind brand memory. The restructuring aimed to reduce hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. It also included measures connected to franchisee economics, including attempts to reduce food costs and support operators. That detail matters because it points back to the center of the story. The core issue was not that customers forgot what Quiznos was. The core issue was that the system carrying the brand had become too fragile. A franchise empire depends on thousands of people believing the same promise, that operating this brand is worth the money, time, and risk. Once that belief breaks, the damage spreads beyond any single restaurant. It affects recruiting, it affects trust, it affects litigation, it affects morale. It affects whether existing operators want to keep fighting for the brand. When franchisees close, the company loses more than a store. It loses a local ambassador. It loses a piece of the map. It loses the person who was supposed to carry the brand into that community. That is why the Quiznos collapse feels so sharp. The product had not become meaningless. The brand had not become completely forgotten. The empire broke because the business system around the product could not support the scale it had created. The most important lesson is that franchising is not just a way to expand faster. It is a partnership economy. The parent company can own the name, the menu, the branding, and the playbook. But the franchisees carry the daily reality. They hire the workers, they pay the rent, they face the customers, they absorb the local risks. If they cannot make the math work, the brand's footprint becomes a liability instead of an asset. Quiznos still exists today, which makes the ending more revealing. The company has not vanished completely. It has continued under new ownership structures and has tried to rebuild around smaller, more flexible restaurant formats, digital ordering, drive-through models, and lower development costs. Those changes are not random modernization. They are a response to the old failure mechanism. A smaller footprint means less upfront cost. A more flexible format can fit more locations. Drive-through and digital ordering match how quick service customers now behave. A stronger focus on franchisee profitability tries to repair the exact weakness that damaged the old system. In other words, the comeback attempt is built around a lesson the collapse made impossible to ignore. Quiznos proved that a good product can create a brand. It proved that a clear difference can scale quickly. It proved that customers will remember a simple idea when the experience feels distinct. But it also proved something harsher. A restaurant empire is not built on customer memory alone. It is built on the economics of each location, repeated hundreds or thousands of times. If that math is broken, growth does not solve the problem. Growth multiplies it. Quiznos did not fail because toasted sandwiches were a bad idea. It failed because the machine that spread those sandwiches became harder to sustain than the demand for the sandwiches themselves. And that is the difference between a brand people remember and an empire that survives.